Have you ever kind of paused and wondered if the paint on your kid's toy or, the coating on your frying pan, is it actually safe? For years, it feels like we've only found out about dangerous chemicals after they're already in our homes. Well, today we're diving into a pretty radical new blueprint from the EU that's designed to stop that from ever happening again. Just think about that for a second. Not just regulating harm after the fact, but designing it out of existence from the very first sketch. I mean, we've all heard the horror stories, right? Things like certain flame retardants in furniture being linked to health issues discovered decades after they became common. This new approach asks a simple but powerful question. What if we could see those problems coming and just prevent them, building safety and sustainability right into a product's DNA from day one?
And look, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea. It is a massive cornerstone of the European Green Deal. That's the EU's huge roadmap to make the entire continent climate neutral. And a giant piece of that puzzle is the zero pollution ambition, a serious commitment to creating an environment where the air, water, and soil are no longer making us sick. This framework we're talking about, it's one of the key tools to actually make that happen.
So how are they going to do it? Here's our roadmap. First, we'll get into the main goal here, safer chemicals. Then we'll unpack the big idea behind it all, something called SSbD. After that, we're diving into 3 crucial checkups, one for our health, one for the planet, and one for society. And then we'll tie it all together and talk about why this matters to you. You know, for the longest time, chemical safety has felt a lot like being a goalie in a penalty shootout. You're always just reacting. A harmful substance gets discovered, and regulators have to scramble to contain the damage. The goal here is to completely flip the script. Instead of being goalies, the idea is to become the architects, designing a game where the dangerous shots are never even taken in the first place.
Okay, so how do we actually pull off such an ambitious goal? That's where this big idea comes in. Let's get into the official strategy. It's a framework called Safe and Sustainable by Design, or for short, you'll see it as SSbD.
The official definition here is, well, it's everything. There are 2 words that just leap off the page. Inherently, which means safety is baked in. It's a core property, not just an add-on, and entire life cycle. This is so important. It's not just about whether a product is safe when you're holding it. It's about its total impact, from the second its raw materials are dug out of the ground to the day it gets thrown away. So the whole framework basically boils down to 2 huge phases. First up, you have the design phase. This is where the real magic is supposed to happen. Innovators are being challenged to think totally differently right from the beginning. It's kind of like building a skyscraper, right? You wouldn't just throw up some steel beams and cross your fingers. No, you meticulously engineer the foundation to withstand earthquakes and wind. Safety is part of the blueprint. And only after that blueprint is rock solid do you move to phase 2, the assessment, where every single claim gets put to the test. So let's talk about that first major test, the safety checkup. This one is a big deal. It's totally non-negotiable. Before any new chemical or material can even think about moving forward, it has to prove it won't harm people. Not the workers in the factory, not you, the consumer, nobody. And to figure this out, the framework does something brilliant. It makes a super clear distinction between 2 ideas, hazard and risk. Just look here. On the left, you've got the shark. Its sharp teeth are an intrinsic hazard. They are, by their very nature, dangerous. But the risk only actually exists if you're in the water with it, like the swimmer on the right. SSbD demands that innovators minimize the hazard from the start, like can we invent a shark with no teeth, while also proving the risk is managed in any real-world situation. But okay, let's say a product is perfectly safe for you. That's only half the story. It could still be an absolute disaster for the planet. I mean, think about certain plastics that are totally harmless to touch, but end up choking our oceans for centuries. And that is exactly why the next crucial step is the planet checkup, which looks at the total environmental cost. This is what experts call a life cycle assessment, and it forces this cradle-to-grave point of view. So designers have to follow this whole timeline. They have to ask, what damage are we doing just by getting the raw materials? How much pollution does the factory create? Does it guzzle tons of energy during its useful life? And then there's the big one. At the very end of its life, does it just become toxic landfill, or can it be recycled, reused, or reborn as something new? And that brings us to the final part of the assessment, and honestly, this might be the most forward-thinking piece of the whole puzzle, the people checkup. Now, what's fascinating is that this stage is currently recommended, not mandatory. And that tells you a lot. It's like the EU is gently pushing the industry in this direction, signaling that this is the next frontier. It's a way of defining sustainability not just in environmental terms, but in very human ones too. So we're moving way beyond just chemistry here, right? This pushes companies to ask some really tough ethical questions. Things like, are the people who are mining the raw materials for our product actually being paid a living wage? Is our factory poisoning the water supply for the town it's in? Are we creating good, stable jobs? Or are we just exploiting a temporary workforce? It adds this whole powerful moral dimension to the process.
Okay, so that was a pretty deep dive into policy and science. Let's pull back and bring it right back home. What does all of this actually mean for you? For me, as we're just trying to buy the things we need?
Well, the payoff is huge. At the most basic level, it means the stuff we buy should just be safer, taking a lot of the guesswork out of protecting our families. It also means we are actively building a cleaner world, not just hoping someone else does. But what gets me really excited is that it forces companies to compete on being smart and green, and that could unlock a whole new wave of incredible, sustainable technologies for all of us.
When you get right down to it, this whole framework is so much more than a new set of rules. It really is a paradigm shift. It's about moving from a mindset of just managing consequences to one of conscious, careful creation. So the question this leaves us with is a really big one. If we get this right, could designing for safety from the very beginning completely revolutionize everything we make, everything we use, and everything we throw away? Now that's a future worth designing for.